आपण लाईव्ह नाही गेलो आज.
यहाँ पर उपस्थित सभी लोगों से निवेदन है कृपया खड़े रहकर और तालियों के गूंज के साथ मुख्य अतिथि का स्वागत करें। कुछ ही क्षणों में मुख्य अतिथि यहाँ पधारते हुए कृपया अपने मोबाइल फोन साइलेंट मोड पे या वाइब्रेशन मोड पे रखें। Yes, please. The guests have arrived. मुख्य अतिथियों से विनती कृपया अपना स्थान ग्रहण करें। स्वागतम, सहर्ष स्वागतम और नमस्कार। यहाँ पर आए सभी अतिथि गुणीजनों का, सभी सम्मानीय गणों का एवं शिक्षक, विद्यार्थी तथा विराजित श्रद्धेय श्रोताओं का मैं स्नेहा कुलकर्णी इस शुभ संध्या में स्वागत करती हूँ। हम सभी रामदंडियों के प्रेरणा स्थान धर्मवीर डॉक्टर बालकृष्ण शिवराम मुंजे जी इनकी 150वीं जयंती के उपलक्ष्य में मध्यवर्ती हिंदू सैनिक शिक्षण संस्था के भोसला सैनिकी महाविद्यालय द्वारा 12, 13 और 14 दिसंबर को हर साल व्याख्यानमाला का आयोजन किया जाता है। इस साल 12 दिसंबर को सम्मानीय अतिथि रिटायर्ड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल डॉक्टर डी शेकटकर इन्होंने नेशनलिज्म अर्थात राष्ट्रवाद इस विषय पर मार्गदर्शन किया। 13 दिसंबर को महानुभाव रिटायर्ड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल संजय कुलकर्णी इन्होंने इमर्जिंग थ्रेट्स फ्रॉम नॉर्दर्न बॉर्डर्स अर्थात उत्तरी सीमा से उभरते खतरे इस विषय पर भाष्य किया। आज 14 दिसंबर के शुभ अवसर पर इस व्याख्यानमाला के तृतीय पुष्प में मुख्य व्याख्याता के रूप में हमें पीवीएसएम, एवीएसएम, एसएम से विभूषित रिटायर्ड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल विनोद खंडारे इनके कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एंड आत्मनिर्भरता अर्थात व्यापक राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा और आत्मनिर्भरता इस विषय पर सुविचार सुनने का सौभाग्य प्राप्त हुआ है। इनके साथ मंच सुशोभित हुआ है विशेष अतिथि पीवीएसएम, एवीएसएम, वीएसएम से सम्मानित रिटायर्ड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल डॉक्टर माधुरी कानेटकर और सम्मानीय अतिथि अशोक चक्र एवं वीएसएम से विभूषित रिटायर्ड मेजर जनरल साइरस पिठावाला। इनके साथ उपस्थित है मिसेस पिठावाला और साथ ही मंच पर हमारे साथ है कैप्टन डॉक्टर एस.जी. नारायण, CHME सोसाइटी नासिक विभाग के अध्यक्ष। आज की शुभ संध्या के रूप में मैं मंच पर उपस्थित सभी मान्यवरों से स्नेहपूर्वक विनती करती हूं कि वे दीप प्रज्वलन द्वारा आज के कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ करें। Business class, let it go. दूसरा क्लास वेरी गुड। दूसरा क्लास वेरी गुड। धन्यवाद। आज हमारे साथ मंच पर उपस्थित सभी सम्माननीय और गणमान्य व्यक्तियों का परिचय मैं आपके सामने अभी प्रस्तुत करती हूँ। हमारे मुख्य व्याख्याता रिटायर्ड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल वी.जी. खंडारे was the former military advisor to National Security Council Secretariat. He retired on 12th October 2021 on completion of his 3-year tenure. Prior to that, he was Director General Defense Intelligence Agency and Deputy Chief of Integrated Defense Staff, handling Tri-Services Intelligence till 31st January 2018. He has a vast experience of 4 decades in handling military affairs and has been involved in advising the apex level on decision making based on analysis and assessments impacting national interest. He has first-hand experience in dealing with China on LAC, with Pakistan on LOC, and in countering terrorism in hinterland of Jammu and Kashmir and North-East region. He has enhanced synergy between technical and human intelligence at tactical, operational, and strategic level. He is an expert in capability and capacity enhancement, including Atmanirbhar mission and defense diplomacy. He is an avid thinker in conflict prevention, management, termination, as also in technology search and incorporation. Currently, he is a distinguished fellow at United Service Institution of India, New Delhi, and emeritus research faculty with Rashtriya Raksha University, Gandhinagar. He is active, giving lectures and participating in international, national, and armed forces seminars. He renders advice to various ministries, think tanks, and pursue Atmanirbhar Bharat agenda in defense production and also in shaping youth as national human resource capital for the present and future. Along with, we are having retired Lieutenant General Dr. Naravane, decorated with Param Vishishta Seva Medal, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, Vishishta Seva Medal. Doctor has assumed the prestigious appointment of Honorable Vice Chancellor of Maharashtra University of Health Science, Nashik. The General Officer was commissioned in Army Medical Corps Center and College on 27th December 1982. She is medical graduate of Armed Forces Medical College, Pune University, and postgraduate in MD Pediatric from Indian Naval Hospital Ship INSHS Ashwini. She has held distinction of being first in Pune University in all 3 phases of MBBS and was awarded the President's Gold Medal and Kalinga Trophy for the best outgoing student of the graduate wing in academics and extracurricular activities in 1982. The Honorable Vice Chancellor is a pediatric nephrologist who has done her postgraduate in pediatric from Mumbai in 1990 and training in pediatric nephrology from All India Institute of Medical Science, New Delhi, followed by the fellowships at National University Hospital, Singapore and GOS, London. She has also completed the Foundation for Advancement of International Medical Education and Research Fellowship in Medical Education. The Honorable Vice Chancellor has been Professor and Head Pediatric at AFMC and also the Dean at her alma mater. She has over 22 years of teaching experience and has been awarded Best Teacher of MUSS in 2008. For her distinguished services, General Kanitkar has been awarded Param Vishishta Seva Medal, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, Vishishta Seva Medal, Commendation by Chief of the Army Staff in 2000, 2003, 2004, 2012 twice, and Commendation by General Officer Commanding in Chief in 2008. Also, we are having a special guest, Major General Cyrus Pithawala, decorated with Ashok Chakra and Vishishta Seva Medal. Major General Cyrus Pithawala was commissioned in the 17th Battalion Jammu and Kashmir Rifles on 1st September 1979. On 6th July 1981, the Lieutenant Pithawala led a raid operation on People's Liberation Army camp in Manipur. In the operation, a fierce gun battle ensued between the security forces and the insurgents. 7 hardcore insurgents were killed and 2 insurgents, including the chairman of the People's Liberation Army, were captured alive. On the Republic Day 1982, then Captain Cyrus Pitawala was awarded India's highest gallantry award in peace, the Ashok Chakra, for displaying outstanding leadership and bravery of an exceptional order. The officer has a rich and extensive experience in counter-terrorist operations. As a brigade commander, he was awarded the Vishishta Seva Medal for successful conduct of counter-terrorist operation in Jammu and Kashmir. He has held various prestigious command and staff appointments in the army. He was an instructor in the Officers Training Academy, Chennai. As a colonel, he was responsible for overseeing all United Nations deployment of India Army. The officer has served on deputation to the United Nations as a military observer in Cambodia and as a deputy sector commander in Democratic Republic of Congo. He is the recipient of United Nations Force Commander Certificate of Appreciation for his distinguished service and devotion to duty. As a general officer commanding, he commanded the Telangana and Andhra sub-area, Secunderabad. He was the GOC during the critical phase of bifurcation of the erstwhile state of Andhra Pradesh into Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. The general officer retired in 2015. He is presently the director of Leslie Sony Center, Delali, Nashik, which is a Tata-founded training center. प्रिय रामबंदी मित्रों, आपने देखा है कि मंच पर उपस्थित जितने भी मान्यवर हैं, इनका बायोडाटा बहुत ही विस्तृत है, बहुत ही विशाल है और बहुत ही विस्मयकारी है। इन सभी के बहुत उत्तुंग कार्य के लिए सबके लिए एक बार जोरदार हौसला क्लैप रेडी गो। कार्यक्रम को गति देते हुए मंचासीन मनीषों के स्वागत क्रम की ओर चलते हैं और मैं कैप्टन एसजी नारायण जी से अनुरोध करती हूं कि वे हमारे प्रमुख अतिथि रिटायर्ड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल विनोद खंडारे जी को स्मृति चिन्ह एवं शाल देके सम्मान पूर्वक इनका स्वागत करें। मैं कैप्टन एसजी नरवणे इनसे विनती करती हूं कि वे आज के मुख्य अतिथि लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल डॉक्टर माधुरी कानेटकर इनका भी स्मृति चिन्ह एवं शाल देके सम्मान पूर्वक स्वागत करें। मैं कैप्टन एसजी नरवणे इनसे विनती करती हूं कि वे हमारे प्रमुख अतिथि मेजर जनरल रिटायर्ड साइरस पिठावाला इनका भी स्वागत करें। Ready, go. सभी मान्यवरों से विनती है कि कृपया स्थान ग्रहण करें और मैं CHME सोसाइटी के नासिक विभाग के अध्यक्ष कैप्टन डॉक्टर एसजी नारायण इनसे विनती करती हूं कि वे प्रास्ताविक द्वारा सबका स्वागत करें।
जय हिंद everyone. Dignitaries on the dais, Representative Vinod Khandare, Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanetkar, Major General Cyrus Pitawala, I am grateful for you could grace the occasion today. This is the third leg of our series on Dr. Moonje's 150th birth anniversary. These topics were contemplated by General Khandare and myself, and within a few minutes we could come to decision which topics to be taken for this series. I'm very grateful to you, sir, for organizing these three topics. General Khandare and I go a long time back. Like for this 150th year, we have organized a band competition amongst all the Sainik schools and military schools in India. It was the inaugural Sainik and military school band competition we held in November. All the 33 military schools, Sainik schools, 5 military schools and RMC, and our 3 military schools and military college. Unfortunately, only one military school could participate, that too without a bandmaster. But then General Khandare took it upon himself and then approached the Joint Secretary Training, and he promised him that next year all 39 schools will have bands. And also the new 100 Sainik schools coming will also have bands in the future. So next year onwards we'll have all 39 schools participating in our band competition. Further, that I and General Khandare have discussed a lot of issues of national importance, mainly why defense studies should not be a topic, as an optional topic in UPSC. So I am very sorry I could not give you the note. That note is ready. I will send you the note within a week or so, so that we can pursue that. All aspirants for UPSC can have a defense studies as an optional subject, which is very important for all IS officers, ISS officers, and IPS officers. Further, we also were supposed to do a defense security exhibition, where again General Khandare helped me a lot. We had almost tied up with almost 50 defense officers who had purchasing power to come and participate in our defense exhibition. But unfortunately, things didn't work out. We hope to hold this exhibition next year, next December. Further, Defense Secretary who had come as chief guest on our raising day, this 150th birth anniversary of Dr. Moonje, he promised us why CHME Society should do the defense exhibition. Why not Ministry of Defense should do the defense exhibition in Nashik itself in 24. So we are going to pursue that, see that the defense exhibition comes to Nashik in 24.
Go and apprehend insurgent. That time they used to call them insurgents. Insurgent in a village called Tekcham. Tekcham was about 30 kilometers from where the battalion headquarters was. And in the afternoon, I, along with 2 junior commissioned officers and 60 other ranks, we left in 3 vehicles. And we reached short of the objective, or 7 kilometers short, left the vehicles. And I, along with 1 JCO and 40 other ranks, went towards the objective. Now, the terrain was very difficult. It was mountainous terrain. And the terrain in Nagaland, Manipur is very, difficult terrain. A lot of grass and very stony. So we moved fast, and short of the objective, I stopped and tucked my men in. And I, along with a small team, we went to see where the insurgents were hiding. So we saw that the whole objective area was in the shape of an inverted horseshoe, घोड़े की नाल, और उस नाल के बीच में ये लोग छुपे हुए थे. There were some huts, 3 huts, और उसके आगे खूब सारे नाले जा रहे थे. So I saw the whole objective and then came back, and we were not ready. Yeah, I forgot one more. So in the way, when we stopped, we caught one of the villagers who was doing kheti mein kaam kar raha tha. We caught him and asked him what are the activities ahead. And that is the time he told us for the first time, told me that there is a full camp of insurgents there. And I had come to catch only one. And he said, यहाँ पर तो पूरा कैंप 12 से 15 लोग हैं, सबके पास तुम्हारे जैसे हथियार हैं। एंड वो 2 दिन से और खूब उनके पास भारी भारी हथियार है, एम्यूनेशन है, इक्विपमेंट है, सब कुछ है। So that was the first time I came to know that there is a camp there. And I had come to catch one person, but there's a full camp. So I tried to speak to my commanding officer and ask him what is to be done. But I couldn't speak to him because in those mountainous terrain, communication is difficult. So I had to take the decision whether I should go for the raid or I should come back or I should just cordon the area and see what is to be done and try to get reinforcements. But I took the decision to go in for the raid because I felt that the terrorists, the insurgents would escape in the night. And if they escape, the army will lose out on a big catch. So I decided to go for the operation. It was daylight and the time then was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I gathered my men and briefed them what is going to happen. And I told them that you should be ready to fight. You should be ready for an encounter. And I told them that you will face fire, you will fire and you will face fire. And there's going to be a fierce encounter, so you should be ready for that. And then tried to brief them on everything there, check the arms, ammunition and everything. And then divided by column in 2 groups. One group was a cordon group and the second group was the raid that was led by me. Now the cordon group was under a JCO. JCO, you all understand? You know, जैसे पुलिस का इंस्पेक्टर होता है 2 स्टार के साथ. So I told him that he is supposed to go and cordon the whole horseshoe feature and ensure he at no cost surprise is lost. Because if surprise is lost, the whole operation will fail. And I told him to cover all the exit routes from which the insurgents, terrorists could run away. And one main route was left on which I was going to go with my team. So in Jagrib, the battalion from which I am, 17th Jammu and Kashmir, हमारा war cry है दुर्गे माता की जय. So हम सब ने दुर्गे माता की जय कह के चुपचाप दुर्गे माता की जय बोला और सब अपने अपने रास्ते पे चले गए. And the JCO went with his column, and I, along with my raid party, we also went. Boys and girls, we were about 500 meters from the objective. These 500 meters we crawled and walked on our knees and on our haunches so that we maintain surprise and not let the terrorists know that we are approaching. So we reached about 100 meters of the objective area when one of their insurgents, one of their spotters, lookout men, he saw us. And when he saw us, or he saw the cordon party, I can't say, but that is the time he shouted out, army, army, and thereafter the battle started. People started running out from the huts with arms, ammunition, and firing at us. And we also fired back, and then the battle started. A heavy volume of fire coming on us, we also fired. There was absolute commotion. I couldn't register what is happening because the grass was so tall. I couldn't see much, but only heard so much of firing. And everyone, there was chaos. There is on the WhatsApp group, there is a viral clipping going of the incident in China. Have you all seen it? That kind of a situation it was there. My boys are all, many Punjabi, Sikhs and all kind of things they were saying. And I couldn't gather what is happening. Then I stopped the fire. I said, stop. And along with my signal operator and one more buddy of mine. In the army, we go with buddies. One person is always with you to cover your back. So we went. And to go to a place from where I could see what was happening. And that is the time when one of the terrorists who was in the Nala, he got up. When he saw three of us, he fired 10 to 15 rounds at the three of us from a distance of about where the first row of chairs are, just about 10 yards. 10 to 15 rounds at the three of us. And with the grace of God Almighty, not a single round hit us. Each one of us were dazed what has happened. But fortunately for me and for my boys, not a single round hit us. Of course, then we shot him. That was the first kill in that operation. Thereafter, I saw that all these terrorists have hidden in the nalas, well entrenched nalas. And the nalas were about 4 to 5 feet in height. And heavy fire was coming. And it was very difficult for us to fire and kill them from the position where we were. Then I made a plan that I will divide my column in two groups. One group under me and one group under my CHM. CHM is a Havaldar company, Havaldar agent. And we divided the column in two groups. And then we entered the nalas. And that was the only way to kill these terrorists. So when I was returning back and gathering my column and the CHM was going, that was the time when, I don't know from where, but from one of the nalas, I got shot. And I got shot by a bullet just above my chest and below my shoulder. The bullet went from the right side and came out from the left. It was a through and through bullet. And I fell down with the burst and with the jerk, but then, got up again. And the blood was oozing out from this wound like a, fountain. All blood was coming out like that. And the whole, there was commotion, ki saab ko goli lag gaya. And the army, the Jawans are very attached to the officers. So when they see the officers shot them up, khoon bulata hai. So they said that saab ko goli lag gaya. And that, in fact, that was a boon for us. Ladkon mein jara josh aa gaya. And it got more determined. But, our body is so strong. It has got so much of resilience that in spite of this injury, you can go on, and it never affected me at all. We went into the nalas, both the columns, and then we started killing the terrorists one by one. I must also tell you here one more incident, that which was a very, very close incident. In fact, I think that was the closest incident of my life. After in the nalas, you will agree that you can't see more than 4 to 5 feet because the nalas take a bend. So we finished one nala, got out. Then I jumped into the second nala with my team, and my buddy was with me. The moment I jumped in, I saw one of the terrorists lying on the floor of the nala with 2 to 3 bullets in him already, injured, with his gun up facing me. The moment I jumped, he first fired a burst, and I also fired a burst at him. And both of us fired at the same time. I thought I had been shot. But that bullet just grazed along my right forearm. I was so lucky to be saved again. And same was my buddy. We both were saved. Of course, we shot him, killed him then. So that was also a very, very close encounter. So that way, we then cleared all the terrorists from the nalas. By then, we had killed about 5 to 6. I'll make it short because we have an important lecture ahead. So we killed 5 to 6 terrorists by then. But the firing was still coming. Then we entered the huts which were there where the headquarters was. Cleared the first hut, then went into the second hut. In the army, and for all of you all, our ethos is that the young officer always leads a column. That is our training, that is our ethos, and that is our pride also. So I was leading the column into these huts. And the second hut, when we went again, we had fire coming on to us. Good, heavy volume of fire. And we fired back, again killed the terrorist. And then, when we cleared that hut, 2 terrorists ran out, firing, who were stopped by our cordon party which was there. And out of those 2, both were apprehended. And out of the 2, one was the chairman of the People's Liberation Army. His name was Bisheshwar Singh. So I did not know that he was Bisheshwar Singh. So he was firing and he was going, and we caught him at the stop. The informer was with me. The person who gives us the information, the civil informer, he was with me. The code name was Peter. So he said, that person there in the tracksuit, he's Bisheshwar Singh, and I said, come with me. He said, I'll not come, and he was shivering. He was so frightened of that chairman, that terrorist. He covered his face with a hanky so that Bisheshwar Singh does not see him. And he ran away from me. Then I went and I caught that chap, tied him up, and asked him, who is he? What is your name? So he said that I'm Bisheshwar Singh, but I will speak with your CO. And I abused him. I said, you first speak with me now. You first, I am your CO right now, you speak with me, then I'll get you my CO. And then we tied him up. And after that, then I could, after some time, I could speak with my commanding officer. I gave him a full review of the whole situation. I told him about the whole operation and told him the successes. Told him, I was not sure at that time how many of my men have got shot. But fortunately, none of them have got shot. So then I told him about the whole operation. After some time, by then it was 6:30, 7 o'clock. My blood had completely dried up. There was not a blood of oozing out. But still the body is so strong. God has made an excellent creature as called a human being. An excellent body he has made. You can keep going on. No blood in the body, but still you can keep going on. This is the strength of God. And this is the strength of our body. So then the reinforcements came. Then I briefed them, and then they carried on with the operation. But in this, it was a very successful operation. But what is more important is the lessons that have been learned in this operation, and which are very relevant for you all. I think the first lesson that I was very fortunate to learn them very early in life, which was very useful for me subsequently as a company commander, battalion commander, brigade commander, all in the insurgency areas. I think the first lesson that is required to be learned is you should always go prepared for any task. I did not tell you, but we had gone to catch only one terrorist. Our ammunition finished very early. We used the same weapons which the terrorists were using, the insurgents were using, because they also had SLRs which we had. So I was using the same weapons. So it's very important to go well prepared for a task. Second, you should brief your men very well. Third, as young officers, as young boys, whichever job you do, you should be where the trouble is. If you are where the trouble is, where the problem is, you will be able to solve that problem. The men will be with you. The next important lesson is, for those who join the army, surprise, speed are very important. And then you must maintain the momentum of an operation. It should never stop. Then you will lose that momentum. And finally, your logistics should be very well planned. And last but not the least, I think it is very important for all of us to believe in God. Believe in God Almighty is very important. You know, for success, three things are important. The first thing in success important is your competence, your caliber. That is, of course, there. The second thing is the environmental issues, the things that support you in your task, who is with you, your team, your senior, all those things that are there. And the third important thing is your karma factor. God must be with you. If He is not with you, it is like you go to the bank to go to a locker, you will have one key. The second key has to come from the bank. So you can, with your effort, go up to the goal, but that kick into the goal. Ronaldo, Messi is gone. And God helps those who are good. The karma factor is very important. So that is all I have to say. Thank you very much, boys, girls, and all the distinguished guests. And I once again am grateful to have been invited today with such eminent people along with me. And thank you very much. Jai Hind.
धन्यवाद सर। आपने जो अनुभव किया है, आपने जो अनुभव कथन किया है, बहुत ही रोमांचकारी है और हमारे तो कल्पना से बहुत ही परे है। आपने जो शौर्य दिखाया है उसके लिए बहुत उत्तुंग सलाम आपको। हौसला क्लैप्स रेडी गो। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। मैं इसके पश्चात शिशु विहार बालक मंदिर इंग्लिश मीडियम की आदिति कुलकर्णी जी से विनती करती हूँ कि वे खड्ग धारणी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना ये पद्य प्रस्तुत करें।
शत्रु समहारी तुम्हारी अर्चना, तुम्हारी अर्चना, खड्गधारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना। श्याम शांत धीर मूर्ति तेजोमय दिव्य कांति, श्याम शांत धीर मूर्ति तेजोमय दिव्य कांति, अश्वारूढ़ क्रांति बार बार वंदना, बार बार वंदना। खड्गधारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना, खड्गधारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना। स्वाभिमानी जित्त ज्योति विजयी चंचल गति, स्वाभिमानी जित्त ज्योति विजयी चंचल गति, निरूप देवही चंडी मूर्ति चेतना चंडी मूर्ति चेतना खरगहारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना खरगहारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना बीत गया वत्सर शतयुद्धानल सर्वशांत बीत गया वत्सर शतयुद्धानल सर्वशांत स्वतंत्र राष्ट्र स्मृत तुम्हारी तपः साधना तुम्हारी तपः साधना खरगहारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना खरगहारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना राणी लक्ष्मी अमर नाम आर्य नाविका विक्रम राणी लक्ष्मी अमर नाम आर्य नाविका विक्रम पुण्य रूप भावना खरगहारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना खरगहारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना शत्रु संहारिणी तुम्हारी आर्चना तुम्हारी आराधना खरगहारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना खरग 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 खरगहारी तुम्हें देतमान वंदना देतमान वंदना देतमान वंदना।
धन्यवाद मैम। इस स्फूर्तिदायक गीत के बाद वक्त हो चला है हमारे मुख्य व्याख्याता जी के सारगर्भी उद्बोधन का। मैं आज के व्याख्यान माला के प्रमुख अतिथि और व्याख्याता रिटायर्ड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल विनोद खंडारे जी से अनुरोध करती हूँ कि वे अपनी वैखरी से श्रोताओं से संवाद करें।
Jai Hind. After hearing General Pithawala, the Josh is quite good now. Okay. Firstly, the distinguished personalities on the stage, General Khandare, General Pithawala, Capt. Naravane, and I don't want to forget Brigadier Subodh Nilgund sitting in front and Mrs. Pithawala who's here. You know, I am particularly happy to be here and I consider myself as very fortunate to be here on such a momentous occasion, Dr. Moonje's 150th anniversary. And I think human beings like us, when we come into these halls, there's a lot of blessing from Dr. Moonje which comes our way. He's been such a prominent figure in Indian history. Seldom do we get to hear about such contributions. And more than me, I think you all who are sitting in this hall, you have had the privilege of being educated and trained and motivated here. I think you should really feel proud about that. So when I wanted to talk to you, there were three things which struck me. Firstly, Dr. Moonje's celebration event, that makes me happy. The second thing which makes me happy is to share the stage with General Khandare, with General Pithawala. And the third, being able to address such a huge number of youth, which is the future of the country. I'm actually looking at the first 2 rows or 3 rows. They are the people who have contributed their life towards educating you all. So a lot of admiration for them, a lot of gratitude for the first 2 rows, that they have done so much for the youth of the country, because you are the future. And You heard General Khandare speaking how a turnaround can come into an organization with the leadership, with the team, a vision, clarity of mind. Then you heard General Pithawala talking to you about how keeping cool during the intense operation where it's only a matter of split second life and death and a decision being taken there, it could go either way. And even after getting injured, he does not let go of the mission and he takes it to a logical conclusion. And both General Khandare and General Pithawala have been very humble in describing what they have done. I have grown up, we all have actually grown up together in the uniform and we know what they have done. You know, General Khandare, when she was into a particular job where she was mostly into planning files. So one day I asked her, I don't know whether she remembers, but I asked her, Madhuri, now your practice, what happens to that? सुबह से शाम तक आप फाइल पुशिंग में लगे हैं. And she said, come to RR hospital. And sure enough, RR hospital, base hospital, had given her a room, and every Saturday, Sunday, when others were relaxing, she was looking after patients. Coming to General Pithawala, I don't know how many of you actually have been alert enough and noticed that every 26th January, General Pithawala, even today, is in uniform saluting the President. There is a special vehicle which is given to him. And it makes me proud to see because he is my postmate, he is a dear friend of mine. When I finished my tenure in the National Security Council Secretariat, that was somewhere in October 2021, and I was then told by the Raksha Mantri that I should become his advisor. So when I went to South Block, I saw his photograph which is in the lobby, and I stood there and took a photograph and sent it to all my postmates, and they were extremely happy to see that his photograph is recognized by the Government of India and is put at a place where all the VIPs go through and they see his photograph. So, okay, so that is one part, I think the preliminary, which I wanted to set right. Now, before I came here, I asked a couple of people that which is the language which the students would want me to address. And somebody said, sir, Marathi will be very good. मी मराठी भाषी आहे, मी मराठीत बोलू शकतो. मी तुम्हाला तेवढंच सिन्सिअरली सगळं काही मराठीत सांगू शकतो. पण एक त्याच्यात तुमचं भविष्य मला लक्षात घ्यायचं आहे. तुम्हाला आता पुढच्या एक्झाम्स मराठीत नाही द्यायचे. तुम्हाला हिंदी आणि इंग्लिशमध्ये आपलं वर्चस्व कायम करायचं आहे. आणि जे टर्मिनॉलॉजी, जे टर्म्स, जे शब्द मी यूज करणार आहे, जर मी ते मराठीत यूज केले, इट विल बी ऑफ नो यूज टू यू बिकॉज यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू ट्रान्सलेट देम द वे आय ट्रान्सलेट देम. So that is why I have decided that I will use a mix of Hindi, English and Marathi, if that is okay by you. Okay. So when we saw how an organization is run, we saw how an operation is run. Now let me take you higher to a level where how a country is run. Why am I involving you in a country? We all are citizens of this country. The future of this country is in our hands. If we have to compete with somebody, it is with the other countries in the world. And while doing so, we have to reach a level of excellence and become within the first 5 of the world's top nations. Now, many people say, sir, the government has not told us what is the vision of our country. They have not told us, they have not written down anywhere what is the national vision. I make it very simple for everyone to understand. How did I start my संबोधन to you? मैंने कैसे भाषण अपना शुरू किया? जय हिंद. जय हिंद मतलब मेरा देश हमेशा जीते. My nation should always be victorious in every field, every domain, every competition, every war, whether it is Olympics, whether it is war, whether it is food security, energy security, economic security, physical security, cyber security, you name a thing, and Jai Hind should happen. That is, we should win everywhere. So this is the simplest way of understanding. There is no need to use any adjectives and adverbs. Just put these two words in your mind and live as per that, and you will be an effective contributor to the national goal. So if we have to have Jai Hind in every field, what are those fields? आज आप कई ऐसे शब्द सुनेंगे जो आपने वैसे सुने होंगे, लेकिन उसका सीरियसनेस शायद आपको या तो ध्यान में नहीं आया होगा या आपने उस पर गौर नहीं किया. जैसे एक टर्म है नेशनल इंटरेस्ट, दूसरा टर्म है नेशनल पावर, तीसरा टर्म है नेशनल सिक्योरिटी. ये सारे शब्द हर एक देश के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है. चाहे वो अमेरिका हो, चाहे वो छोटा देश मालदीव हो, लेकिन ये तीनों फ्रेजेस या तीनों शब्द सभी देशों के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है. नेशनल इंटरेस्ट क्या है? जब कोई देश ऐसा डिसीजन लेता है जिससे अपने देश की प्रगति होती है, तो वो कहा जाता है कि हमने वो निर्णय नेशनल इंटरेस्ट में लिया. जब हम कहते हैं कि हमने अपनी प्रगति की, उससे हमारा नेशनल पावर बढ़ा. अब नेशनल पावर कोई भी कह सकता है कि सर नेशनल पावर का मतलब क्या वो इकोनॉमिक्स है, क्या वो मिलिट्री है? मेरा यहां पे आपको कहना है कि ये सभी मिला के जब हमारे देश की ताकत बढ़ती है, विश्व में ताकत बढ़ती है, देश के अंदर ताकत बढ़ती है, तो इंटरनल और एक्सटर्नल इस पावर को मिला के हम नेशनल पावर कहते हैं. इसके बाद हम कहते हैं नेशनल सिक्योरिटी. हमारे जो दुश्मन हैं, नॉर्मली वी यूज अ वेरी पोलाइट टर्म बाय नॉट कॉलिंग पीपल एनिमी, वी से एडवर्सरी. So we say when our adversaries are wanting to reduce our national power, so we have to ensure our national security. मतलब whatever actions we take to conserve and consolidate our national power, all those activities are taken into national security. Then suddenly one more term has got added, comprehensive national security. The reason? आमतौर पे किसी से भी अगर आप पूछिए कि नेशनल सिक्योरिटी, सबको ऐसा लगता है ये मिलिट्री की जवाबदारी है. ऐसा नहीं है. किसी को बोले कि नेशनल पावर, सबको लगता है ये तो इकोनॉमिक्स का काम है. ऐसा नहीं है. हर एक व्यक्ति, हर एक नागरिक, उसका ये कर्तव्य है कि देश का पावर बढ़ाए. अपनी छोटी से छोटी कार्रवाई से नेशनल पावर बढ़ाना है और अपनी सावधानी से उस नेशनल पावर को बचा के रखना है. मतलब हमको नेशनल सिक्योरिटी रखनी है. तो ये जब सारे इतने अलग अलग सब्जेक्ट्स उसमें जुड़ गए, तो इसलिए उसके साथ में कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव वर्ड जुड़ गया. तो कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव नेशनल पावर और कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव नेशनल सिक्योरिटी, इसके ऊपर मैं भी आपको बताता हूं. सबसे आसान है जब राजनाथ सिंह जी कहते हैं लोकसभा में या राज्यसभा में या किसी भी जगह पे जाके कहते हैं कि हम चीन को अपने देश की 1 इंच भी जमीन नहीं देंगे. तो इसको फिजिकल सिक्योरिटी या टेरिटोरियल सिक्योरिटी कहा जाता है. सो व्हेन वी से दैट वी विल नॉट यील्ड इवन एन इंच ऑफ ग्राउंड, दैट मीन्स वी हैव ensured the physical security of our nation, the territorial integrity of our nation would be safe. Now for that, we will definitely require the armed forces, which are strong, which should be able to prevent any adventurous activity from whether China or Pakistan. Recently, just last couple of days, you've seen what has happened on 9th, and the Indian Army was able to ensure that not an inch was lost. Now, that exactly falls into the category of ensuring physical security. It's not the first time that it has happened. इसके पहले 1947 से आप देख लीजिए, लगातार भारतीय सेनाएं देश की सुरक्षा, देश की सॉवरेंटी को बचाते आई हैं। 47-48 का युद्ध आपको मालूम है। उसके बाद जो एक्शन गोवा में हुए, हैदराबाद में हुए, वो भी आप लोगों को पता है। जो एक्शन 1962 में हुए, जिसमें हमारे देश की बहुत बुरी तरह से हार हुई, और उसका कारण एक ही था कि हम लोगों ने अपनी नेशनल सिक्योरिटी को निगलेक्ट किया। हमने जब नेशनल सिक्योरिटी को निगलेक्ट किया तो उसका खामियाजा हमें 1962 में भुगतना पड़ा, और 1962 में जो हमारी चीन के विरुद्ध हार हुई वो हम आज तक भूले नहीं हैं। वो हमारे लिए एक सबक है, और सबक से हम और मजबूत बनते हैं। लेकिन इसका एक फर्क हुआ, 1962 में जब हमारी हार हुई चीन के विरुद्ध, तो पाकिस्तान को ऐसा लगा, उनके जो राष्ट्राध्यक्ष थे अयूब खान, उनको ऐसा लगा कि ये मौका है और अभी भारत से कुछ टेरिटरी ले ली जाए। तो उन्होंने 1965 की लड़ाई इनिशिएट की, जिसमें उनकी हार हुई, लेकिन इस तरह से सुपर पावर में अपना एक रोल
simplest way of understanding. There is no need to use any adjectives and adverbs. Just put these two words in your mind. या तो ध्यान में नहीं आया होगा, आपने भी effective contribution नहीं किया the national goal. जैसे एक term है national to have जय हिंद, दूसरा term है national power, तीसरा term है national security. जब ये सारे ऐसा डिसीजन लेता है देश के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है। अपने देश की, चाहे वो अमेरिका हो, चाहे वो छोटा देश मालूम हो, लेकिन ये तीन
United States of America decided to twist our arms. We did not have our food security. We did not have food to eat. I think Cyrus and me, we both would have been children in class 3rd, 4th or something around that time. And I was there in Delhi because my father was posted in Delhi. And I remember very clearly one evening, Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri came on air, All India Radio, Akashvani, and he addressed the nation and he said that our friends have refused to give us wheat. We will not have food for the entire country. So he as a Prime Minister decided that he would request the nation to have one fast, one day as a fast in a week. And he as a Prime Minister would eat only one meal a day. That is a very big lesson for us to understand, that if you do not have food security, you may have the strongest of armed forces, but the international players will leverage you into submission. At that time, food security was our weakness. The military was strong. But simultaneously, let me also tell you, because somewhere from 1947, 48, 50, we had neglected the armed forces, so the weaponry, that was also not very good. That was not modern. While Pakistan was getting the best possible tanks, fighter aircrafts, they were getting saber jets, they were getting Patton tanks from USA. We were not getting. So we had to fight with what we had. And those tanks and those fighter aircrafts were definitely not a match, but our military people were extremely good, and with those lesser qualified weaponry, we were able to defeat Pakistan. But the lesson again learned. Technologically, in our national power, we were weak. So I have explained to you about food, I have explained to you about the technology part, and I have explained to you in diplomatic terms how we were weak, that we had to actually yield whatever gains we had made, and possibly, I am not sure about that, but possibly Lal Bahadur Shastri felt that as a big. There are various stories, I don't want to get into that because that will become tangential, so I am not getting into that. Thereafter came 1967. I do not know how many of you know, but in 1967 China tried something adventurous at Nathula, which is in Sikkim. The general on ground decided that he is not going to ask anybody and he is going to take his own decisions. The way you heard Jal Pithawala say, on the spot, decision taken, and the Chinese were punished. And the Chinese lost a lot of soldiers. And they took back their soldiers and never ever attempted that at Nathula till date. Now what does it show? That your military is strong, your leadership is strong, your decision making is strong. If the nation is able to support the military in terms of what is the allocation of resources, that is the money, the latest weaponry, the latest technology, then the military can face any particular challenge, whether it is from the northern front, whether it is from the western front, or anybody for that matter. 1971 was a particular operation, a military campaign, which showed how the entire government of India, all its ministries, all its functionaries came together, and that became a winning combination, and we won the war. We created Bangladesh, and we had 93,000 prisoners of war with us, and Pakistan had to come down to its knees. So that was a victory which people say they have not seen or heard till date. So that is some brilliant record because of which हम सबका माथा गर्व से ऊपर रहता है. 1971 की लड़ाई. (1971) की लड़ाई के बाद एक ऐसा समय आया जब पूरे विश्व में शीत युद्ध बदलता गया. 1989, 1991, with the dissolution of USSR, Cold War finished. And something unique started for the world. We had already been facing it, but we faced intense terrorism in J&K. Earlier we were facing terrorism in Northeast. And what was being faced in Northeast was also being sponsored by China. So when I am talking of Northeast and I am talking of Jammu Kashmir and what is called as proxy war, that is war waged from across the border with or without the help of the locals, this is exactly what Chanakya has also explained long time back, that these are the kinds of threats which a king or a kingdom will face, which means the internal cohesion of the country has to be kept intact. Somewhere we were going wrong and we were not able to get that problem resolved. So that is what I want to explain, that internal security is extremely important. And internal security can only be ensured not by the army, not by the air force, not by the navy, but by the civil society, by the civil government, by the state police, and by the central armed police forces. And more important than that is by the intelligence agencies. When you study Chanakya, you realize he described about Saptang. And I would suggest to you, you all must read, and my request to the faculty is you must teach. Because there is a tendency to study Western thought and neglect the Indian wisdom. Here in Sattam, he talks of the mind, which is the king or the Swami. So if the mind is capable, the Swami is capable, he can lead the entire kingdom to victory. He can ensure that the neighbors or the adversaries do not wage war against the kingdom. And to do that, he has explained what all is required. He has explained how the minister should be there. He has explained the kosh or the economy. He has explained the military, which is the dandas. So by explaining that, he has in a way taught us that internal security is as important as external security. And in our initial years of freedom, somewhere we lost track of that. By the time we realized it, the losses were huge, the trauma was quite a bit, and the world was looking at us as if we are a weak country or as if we are a country which will get disintegrated within no time. But it is the resilience of the Indian nation, of its people, of its leaders, that we were able to withstand the turmoil in Northeast, we were able to withstand the turmoil in J&K and in Punjab. All these are proxy wars from outside. And now, in the last couple of years, you see the record. Every record is available in open source media. How we have been able to tackle the Maoist threat in the hinterland. There was a time when the Maoists used to say that the red corridor would be from Pashupatinath to Tirupati. That is something of an insult to a sovereign country like India, that a bunch of Maoists can threaten us. Over a period of time, there has been sustained activity. In this, the military has not got involved. It has been handled by the state police. It has been handled by the CAPF. And now you see, out of over 200 odd districts which had been impacted by Maoists, I think less than 50 remain in that list. The number of active Maoists are also very less. But that doesn't mean that they are out. It is the responsibility of the civil society to keep a vigilance and find out where is the problem lying in a dormancy which can be revived. So for internal security, while the entire government is responsible, the entire ministries, the state government, the police, everyone is responsible, but so are you and me. We are the eyes and ears of the government. And if we are not able to do our duty, the internal turmoil will never die. The internal turmoil is under various heads, whether it is radicalism, whether it is corruption, whether it is separatism. Such things have been happening time and again, and it is important for us to leave a secure future for our future generation by ensuring that once this Maoist threat or the insurgency or the terrorism in Northeast, Punjab and J&K is finished, it is never allowed to get revived. That is the responsibility of each citizen. Now, someone will ask me, sir, how do I do that? What exactly are you expecting me to do? Baba Sahib Ambedkar, in drafting the constitution along with his team, had visualized that at some stage, as we keep growing older as a democracy, we would take lessons from the directive principles of state policy and enact laws to ensure that fundamental rights, at the same time duties, should also be performed by each citizen. That hasn't happened. But the necessity of that is being felt increasingly. Okay. Now, this is only about the violent part of the internal security. There are other issues also in internal security which create turbulence. And the latest example we saw was COVID. काफी जाने जा सकती हैं और उस समय देश के अंदर हाहाकार मचता है, morale goes down, the economy of the country goes down, and that is where pragati goes down. So those challenges which are likely to happen related to health sector are also one of the most important component of internal security, and that is the health security. I have explained law and order, I have just now explained health. And when I was explaining to you the issue of radicalization, separatism, I want to connect that with the education sector, and you all are in the education sector. While the constitution was framed, there was a lot of emphasis on federalism, so that every state will have its powers, every state will have enough autonomy to frame its laws. The state list, the concurrent list, and the central list, these three lists were made, subjects were put into these three buckets. Health is in one of the state bucket, education is in one of the state bucket, law and order is also in one of those. Environment and forests are also in that. In the bargain, from Delhi, the Prime Minister, even if he has good intentions, by the time he tries to get his act right, there is a lot of opposition or there is a lot of retardation from the states, and the entire impact is visible to the entire world. Now, why does this happen? We have chosen democracy as our form of government, and we love democracy, and we must respect democracy, and we must ensure that we never lose democracy. But democracy has its own peculiarities, which other countries which are ruled by autocrats, they don't have those problems, because that is the typical form of functioning there. Whether it is China, if Xi Jinping says something, वैसा ही होगा. वहां पे कोई एनजीओ आके खड़ा नहीं होगा, वहां पे कोई जुडिशरी वाला आके खड़ा नहीं होगा. ये चैलेंजेस हमारे हैं. अगर पाकिस्तान आर्मी ने कुछ निर्णय लिया है, उनके आर्मी चीफ बाजवा साहब ने कोई निर्णय लिया है, तो वो वैसा ही होगा, और अगर उसका कोई विरोध करेगा तो वो जेल में जाएगा. लेकिन प्रजातंत्र या लोकतंत्र में ऐसा होना नहीं चाहिए और होता नहीं भी है. लेकिन उसका परिणाम ये होता है कि हमारे आपस में बातचीत बहुत शुरू हो जाती है कि सरकार ने कुछ भी नहीं किया, सरकार ने अभी तक कुछ नहीं किया, सरकार कुछ नहीं करेगी, ये किसी ने डिसीजन दे दिया. आपको एक एग्जांपल देता हूं. ये आर्टिकल 370 जब हटाया गया, उस समय मैं नेशनल सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल सेक्रेटेरिएट में था. मुझे मालूम है कई सालों तक इसके ऊपर रिसर्च हुआ. जनरल कानेटकर मैडम ने बोला रिसर्च इज अ वीकनेस. ये रिसर्च स्ट्रेटेजिक इश्यूज में भी वीकनेस था, बट इट वाज डिसाइडेड दैट वंस यू हिट विद अ हैमर, you should not say that we missed it. And that is why all legal issues were examined, constitutional issues were examined, diplomatic issues were done, intelligence agencies went abroad to see what will be the impact, internally it was done, and that is when in the parliament it was announced as would be correct in a democracy. By doing that, what have we done? Another step towards ensuring that internal security is consolidated. एक राज्य में एक कानून, बाकी देश में दूसरे कानून, ऐसे से इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी नहीं रह सकती. हम लोग जो फौज के हैं, हमारी फौज में शायद 75% हमारी जिंदगी या तो नॉर्थ ईस्ट में कटी है या जेएंडके में कटी है. हम लोगों को मालूम है कि वहां पे फंक्शन करना कितना मुश्किल था. जहां आप कुछ कर देंगे, वहां पे आपके खिलाफ ह्यूमन राइट वायलेशन हो जाएगा या आपके खिलाफ एजिटेशन हो जाएगा. लेकिन कुछ ऐसे निर्णय जो सरकार ने लिए, उससे इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी भी मजबूत हुई. Somewhere around 2007-8, a lot of stone pelting used to happen in J&K. You all would have heard of it. You would have seen in the TV live pictures of our CRPF jawans coming and some youth beating them up. That doesn't happen anymore. That internal security is a transformation because of a constitutional amendment. Where is that linked? I am trying to show you that this is a whole of nation approach, whole of government approach, because of which what was the suffering of the uniformed fraternity in J&K was overcome because of an act of parliament which was ensured by the government. ये जो कन्वर्जेंस वाली चीजें होती है, इसमें एक और चीज आती है जो आप बार बार सुनते हैं कि चीन में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बहुत तेजी से बन रहा है, बॉर्डर की तरफ उनके रोड्स अच्छे बन रहे हैं, लेकिन भारत की जो रोड्स बनाने की क्षमता है वो कम है. आपले रोड्स अजून बनून नाही राहिले त्या स्पीडनी, त्या गतीने ज्या स्पीडनी चायना रोड्स बनवतात. That is a fact. I am not trying to give a false picture to you, and I will give you the reasons for it. In China, the roads, when they are constructed, the budget for that road, which is along the border, comes from the provincial government's budget. In our case, it comes from the defense budget. तो या तो आप रोड बना लीजिए या आप हथियार खरीद लीजिए. That is a dilemma. And because of that dilemma, delays take place. That is one part. Secondly, when Xi Jinping gives an order that this is the road to be constructed, everyone up the chain falls in line. In our case, because of democracy and because of federal form of government, the state government is creating a different road, the village panchayat is creating a different road, the state PWD is doing something else, the border roads is doing something else, the national highway authority is doing something else. So now to get that convergence, you would have heard when the Prime Minister announced that Gati Shakti is the initiative which has been done. Now Gati Shakti is the initiative where rail road project conversion, and in that also those others who wait for the road to be constructed, then they come and dig up because pipeline lagana. That problem is there all over, whether it is in India or elsewhere, but with this Gati Shakti, even that is being minimized. So that is one more initiative. Now, what exactly is this? When the democracies realize that such problems handicap problems for economic growth and for security, another term got coined, which is called good governance. In the last couple of years, you would have heard very often good governance. Good governance, the first step is convergence of national resources. So that will ensure that the
An
speed
act of parliament which was
improved.
ensured by the
We were
government.
constructing one road here and then a bridge over
ये जो कन्वर्जेंस वाली चीजें होती है, इसमें एक और चीज आती है जो आप बार बार सुन रहे हैं कि
why can't we make a tunnel which is common to both? But this should have happened in the last 75 years. It's happening now. But it should have happened long time back. We would have seen a different picture. But anyway, at least in the next 25 years, we expect to do better than what we have done earlier. I want to give another example of what is known as the environmental security or the ecological security, and then its balance with other issues. When we talk of national interest, there are places where people are shocked. They say on the international forum, how is it that India and China are on the same side now? Environmental part is one place where India and China are on the same side because the Western thought about how to reduce carbon emission goes against our development. So that is where China and India look after their national interests and take a position to say that look, if our development goes down, then our security will also go down. So we say, okay, we will do exactly what we want to do, but when you want us to finish every emission by 2030, we will not do that, we will do it by 2070. So that is where our national interest is kept more important. The forward area roads, जो आगे बिल्कुल बॉर्डर एरिया में लगे हुए रोड्स हैं, उसमें एक पर्टिकुलर रोड था जिसको बनाना बहुत आवश्यक था, और जैसे ही वो प्रोजेक्ट अनाउंस हुआ कि ये इस तरह का एक रोड बनेगा जिसकी चौड़ाई, उस रोड की चौड़ाई 10 मीटर होगी. वो 10 मीटर क्यों, 3 मीटर क्यों नहीं, 5 मीटर क्यों नहीं, उसका एक कारण था, वो मैं आपको बता. लेकिन जैसे ही ये एक अनाउंसमेंट हुई, अगले दिन सुप्रीम कोर्ट में एक PIL किसी ने लगाई कि ये रोड नहीं बनना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये रोड अगर बनेगा तो जंगल कटेगा, और जंगल कटेगा तो हमारी प्रकृति नष्ट होगी। तो उसमें सरकार ने, भारतीय सेना ने ये कहा कि देखिए, भारतीय सेना का एक मोटो है कि हमने अपने देश की सुरक्षा करनी है, लेकिन पहुंचेंगे तो लड़ेंगे, अगर पहुंचेंगे नहीं तो लड़ेंगे कैसे? So that is when that PIL was responded to jointly in a manner that the Attorney General of India, the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways put their minds together, and the example or the case study that was given, that to reach the northern borders, it is not only enough to make our infantry, foot soldiers reach there. We want our tanks to reach there. We want our guns to reach there. And they cannot go on a road which is 3 meters wide or even 5 meters wide. We need roads which are 10 meters wide. Now, when this activity was happening, I want to mention here, because a very important role played by our late CDS, General Bipin Rawat. For days together, we used to discuss how to overcome this problem, because this is a judicial problem, legal problem. The military is not geared up to fight legal battles in Supreme Court. So then the Attorney General and us, we used to sit together and we used to work it out. And finally, with whatever delay it took, because in courts also there is a lot of delay which takes place, but then they have the reasons for it and we respect that, because judiciary has to be respected. Finally, that case was won on 7th December last year, one day before General Rawat died in that helicopter crash. I think somewhere he went with a peaceful mind that he had got something for the armed forces, that the road required to go to the border areas would now be constructed. This is yet another unique problem in a democracy. And unless we get our mechanism right, where the judiciary also understands the nefarious activities of some of the NGOs, and what the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of Finance has to look at the accounts of these NGOs. Otherwise, the problem will continue, and these problems, when they get created by our adversaries using our own people here, is again, I take your mind to what Kautilya said, that you don't have to fight your enemy to win if you can make them fight among themselves. The strength of a democracy is freedom. The strength of a democracy is transparency. But when excess of that is being seen, your adversaries will use it and you will be caught off guard. If you recollect, June 2017, something was happening in Sikkim. What was happening? Doklam, June to August, Doklam was happening. Actually, it is not Doklam, it is Dolam, but everyone said Doklam, so I am also saying Doklam. Now, Dolam is a plateau, and that is where it is Bhutanese territory, and the Chinese wanted to construct a road or a series of roads and its position on that Dolam plateau. So they came. Now, this is not Indian territory. We were expecting Bhutan to take action, but obviously Bhutan is too small and too weak. Now, what do? So that is the time the government took a decision and they said, we will enter this on behalf of our friendly neighbor, that is Bhutan, and we will stop this activity. And we stopped that activity. When the military was doing this, some of you may recall that there was a lot of noise on the media that the government is not informing anything. That is not something new. You would have heard. People have asked us proof whether we really did the surgical strikes or not. They have asked proof of what was happening in Dolam. And when Dolam was happening, there were two things more which were happening. There was a strike given by Gorkhaland agitator in the same area from where our vehicles had to move. I have been on that road in the same period because I wanted to go to Dolam and see for myself what is exactly happening there. Then I was the Director General of Defence Intelligence Agency. And when I moved on that road, I saw all roads had been blocked by the Gorkha agitation people, which is something which may have had a connection directly or may have had an indirect connection, but all the same, it degraded our mobilization capability. But the Indian Army still was good. It mobilized its artillery during night in single vehicles, and even before the Gorkhaland agitators realized, the Indian military was in its own positions. When the Dolam issue was happening and thereafter, in 2020, when Eastern Ladakh was again boiling, that is the time one more agitation was brewing up. That was some industries, I do not want to name them, but they gave a warning to the government of India that if you do not listen to our demand, we are going on a strike, and those industries were the ones which manufacture arms and ammunition for us. This is the kind of penetration which possibly agents of China are able to achieve. That is where the citizens have to be extra alert and put our differences aside when it comes to your own national interest, your own national security, and your own national power. Anyway, we did whatever we had to, and thereafter, some more action, administrative reforms were taken to sort out these industries which were not behaving properly. So again, that is one more government action which was taken to ensure that our internal security hereafter is not held to ransom by some rogue elements. How was the media coverage during these actions? During the Doklam incident, the government of India took a very well calculated, calibrated call that we would not give any statement whatsoever. Whatever the military is doing, let them do it. They are experts in their field. उनको मालूम है क्या करना है, उनको मालूम है कि किस तरह से इस खतरे से निपटना है. सरकार ने फौज के किसी काम में कोई रुकावट या कोई बाधा नहीं डाली. फौज ने जो करना था वो किया. हमारे किसी भी पत्रकार को आगे इसलिए नहीं जाने दिया क्योंकि मामला बहुत संवेदनशील था. लेकिन इसको अलग तरह से प्रोजेक्ट किया गया कि हम शायद वहां पे हार रहे हैं इसलिए हम जाने नहीं दे रहे. ऐसा नहीं था. There were 7 resident correspondents of Indian media in China, whether in Shanghai or Beijing. Whatever from Beijing was given to these people, whether it was through People's Daily or Global Times or Xinhua, these are the news agencies of China. Whatever was being given, our Indian newspapers were printing exactly the same, without verification or without any checking up. Doesn't matter. We had that resilience and we did not bother about it, and finally, when China was getting desperate because it had to hold the BRICS conference and it would have been embarrassed with the continuation of Doklam issue, so then the issue was resolved and both the countries decided to come to some conclusions. Eastern Ladakh, similar. Now, 9th December, similar issues. So there is a perpetual kind of a demand which comes up from a number of people from the civil society that they want to know exactly what has happened minute to minute. If you really want to know minute to minute, I want to take your attention to 26/11 which happened in Mumbai. I also want to take you to Kargil operations because media was active right at the ground zero. The military lost some of its best jawans and some of its best officers because whatever was flashed was being picked up by Pakistan and they were correcting the action here. So there has to be a self-restraint among civil society. If you want to know something, you should want to know something only if you can help. If you cannot help, then I don't think anybody has a right to demand something and get somebody killed. I think that's a very delicate balance, and maturity in civil society has to come up. And in this hall, when you take this message home and you spread this message in civil society, I assure you it will make a difference. And that is exactly the responsibility which I am saying, that how does a nation become strong is because citizens make the nation strong. Other than food security, there is something known as agricultural security, which is beyond the food domain. 1947 में जब हम लोग स्वतंत्र हुए, उस समय जूट उगाने वाला पूरा क्षेत्र बांग्लादेश में चला गया और उसकी फैक्ट्रीज पूरी इंडिया में आ गई। ना बांग्लादेश नहीं था, ईस्ट पाकिस्तान था, तो पाकिस्तान को उसका कोई फायदा नहीं हो रहा था और भारत को इन फैक्ट्रीज का कोई फायदा नहीं हो रहा था। उस समय काफी जोर शोर से जूट उगाने की कार्रवाई शुरू की बंगाल में और उसकी वजह से कुछ फैक्ट्री चली, लेकिन कई फैक्ट्रीज उसमें बंद हो गई। A large number of things in terms of agricultural products all over the world are being imported by a number of countries from China. And those countries then realize after some time that they are held to ransom because their resources are utilized by China. Pakistan is a living example of that. Most of the water which is in Pakistan will be used by China for its agriculture. So even if China invests in Pakistan, Pakistan will not derive the kind of benefit it should derive. I am giving an example of that. Pakistan used to be one of the leading exporters of cotton to Bangladesh, and Bangladesh has become a leading exporter of finished garments, and it was dependent on Pakistan's cotton. If you recollect, somewhere around 2016, after Uri, what happened in Uri, I don't have to repeat, but that is the time when Prime Minister Modi said that this water which is going into Pakistan as an overflow, which is not their entitlement, should not be allowed to go there. There is an Indus Water Treaty between India and Pakistan, जिसमें Western rivers and Eastern rivers का बंटवारा है। तो जो हमारे हक का पानी है, उसमें से भी बहुत सा पानी पाकिस्तान में जा रहा था। तो प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा कि ये जो हमारा पानी है वो हमारे लोगों के लिए है, उनका पानी वो अपने आप इस्तेमाल करें, उनको जो करना है वो करें। So a lot of action was taken, a number of check dams, a number of canals, all these things were built up from 2016 till date, because of which a lot of water which was otherwise going to them, which was not their entitlement, they were growing cotton, and that particular cotton production reduced. Another example, if you try to mess up with somebody who controls your water, then your security is endangered. That is a lesson for us also, because on our northern borders, China controls a number of our rivers. So many a time people say, sir, why don't we do this to China? Why don't we do that to China? But between the two countries, India and China, we do not have an agreement of water sharing. आप लोगों को सबको मालूम होगा कि जब भी कोई नदी बहती है तो जहां से उसका उद्गम होता है उस देश को अपर रिपेरियन स्टेट कहा जाता है, और जब वो पानी बहता है और जब वो समुद्र में जाता है किसी और देश के थ्रू, तो उस देश को लोअर रिपेरियन स्टेट कहा जाता है। जो नदियां हमारे देश में आती हैं सारी चाइना से आती हैं, तो जो खासतौर पे हिमालय में आती हैं वो अपर रिपेरियन स्टेट चाइना है, वो कुछ भी कर सकता है। उसकी मर्जी है, वो करना चाहे, क्योंकि एग्रीमेंट फॉर्मल नहीं है और इसके ऊपर यूएन में अभी तक कोई ऐसा कन्वेंशन या एग्रीमेंट बना नहीं है। बनना चाहिए लेकिन बना नहीं। जो इन नदियों का डेटा होता है, उसकी इंफॉर्मेशन होती है, जो हम लगातार चाइना को मांगते हैं, चाइना हमें वो देता नहीं है और वो उसका न देने का एक तरह से हक तो नहीं है, लेकिन जिद है कि हम नहीं लेंगे अब। तो हम प्लानिंग उसके बारे में उतने ही डेटा पे कर सकते हैं जो हमने डेटा इकट्ठा किया है। ब्रह्मपुत्र के ऊपर आपने सुना होगा कि वो कई डैम्स बनाने की कोशिश कर रहा है। उन डैम से वो पानी उन क्षेत्रों में ले जाना चाहता है, जैसे टिबेट और सिंकियांग प्रोविंस, चीन के ये 2 प्रोविंस हैं, जिसमें वो बड़े पैमाने पे एग्रीकल्चर करना चाहता है। एग्रीकल्चर क्यों करना चाहता है? वो एक्सपोर्टर बनना चाहता है। आज अभी कुछ दिनों पहले एक इंफॉर्मेशन आई थी कि इस साल भी चीन का एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोडक्शन रिकॉर्ड हाई है, कोविड के बावजूद। लेकिन अगर और वो एग्रीकल्चर बढ़ाता है तो इसका मतलब ये होगा हमारे यहां पानी कम आएगा, हमारा एग्रीकल्चर कम होगा और उसका एग्रीकल्चर बढ़ेगा, वो हमारा डिपेंडेंस उसके ऊपर जाएगा। तो ये भी एक समझने वाली चीज है। जब कूटनीति की बात की जाती है तो इन सब चीजों को हमें ध्यान में रखना पड़ता है। एनवायरमेंटल सिक्योरिटी में मैं आपका ध्यान अभी इस तरह से ले जाना चाहता हूं कि कार्बन एमिशन एक चीज है, उस पर पूरी दुनिया का ध्यान है, बहुत बढ़िया है, कोई उसमें बड़ा मामला नहीं है। लेकिन हमारे जो बड़े डैम्स हैं, बहुत बड़े बड़े डैम्स हमने 1947 के बाद बनाए। कभी किसी रशिया से हमने मदद ली, किसी और देश से मदद ली, लेकिन हमने काफी बड़े डैम्स बनाए। उनमें एक प्रॉब्लम, ये डैम्स उन नदियों पे हैं जो हिमालय से आते हैं और हिमालय की सॉइल काफी लूज है, तो हर साल उस पानी के साथ बहुत सारी सॉइल उन डैम में आ जाती है। उसका जो सिल्टिंग है वो रेगुलर तरीके से डीसिल्टिंग नहीं हो पाता। तो जो आपने उसकी प्लांट कैपेसिटी की थी, आज उससे कम पानी है। अब इसके लिए इलाज क्या है? तो इलाज, जितने ज्यादा हम कैनाल्स बनाएंगे, जितने हम ज्यादा कैनाल्स को इंटरलीक करेंगे, जितना बहता हुआ पानी हमारे पास रहेगा, उस पानी का कंट्रोल हमारे ऊपर रहेगा। तो अभी कल की एक खबर है जिसमें हमारे जल शक्ति मंत्री ने एक मीटिंग ली है दिल्ली में, जिसमें वो इस टाइप के कैनाल के प्रोजेक्ट्स के बारे में बातचीत कर रहे हैं। और ये सिर्फ इतना आसान नहीं होता है कि कोई कैनाल बना दें, खोदा और बना दिया, ऐसा नहीं है। उसके साथ बहुत सारी चीजें इन्वॉल्व होती हैं, लैंड एक्विजिशन से लेके उसकी गहराई क्या होगी, वहां पे सॉइल की कंडीशन क्या है, वहां पे हिस्टोरिकल साइट्स क्या हैं, वहां पे पॉपुलेशन क्या है, ये सारा कुछ देखना पड़ता है। तो एक एनवायरमेंटल सिक्योरिटी के हिसाब से और वाटर सिक्योरिटी के हिसाब से ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है। और इसमें एक एंगल और जुड़ जाता है, जो डेवलप्ड देश हैं, द डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज हैव बीन प्लेइंग विद द वेदर मॉडिफिकेशन। I am sure a lot of you may have read or heard about weather modification. This is not a new term. When the Vietnam War was going on, United States of America started weather modification in Vietnam, over the Vietnam skies, by cloud seeding artificially, which is done today as a routine in Maharashtra, in Andhra, in Karnataka for ensuring rains. But at that time, in the 50s, when United States did cloud seeding over Vietnam, it was to ensure that the roads get flooded and the Viet Cong are not able to move. It's a different story that the Viet Cong were, as it is, never moving on the roads. But that weather modification was done by the United States. That same weather modification had been done or prepared to be done even in World War II. It is now that the same thing is being done by China. They are preparing for weather modification. Some of you who are interested, you can go on to Google and check up. There is a project known as River in the Sky. That is a research work which is in progress, where the Chinese scientists are looking at how to transfer moisture from the atmosphere from one place to another. And if that happens, you can imagine what will happen to the monsoon clouds. So that is something which again the Indian government will be raising at some forum or the other. But since it is a research project and details are not known, so you cannot accuse the country about that. But how do we connect the dots? Because our intelligence authorities explain that there are a number of weather monitoring stations in thousands in Tibet. There are a number of water evaporation machines which have been put over Brahmaputra. And there are some buoys. Buoys are एक वो गुब्बारा टाइप का होता है जो समुद्र में तैरता है, उसको या तो जमीन के साथ में समुद्र तल से बांध दिया जाता है या वो तैरता है. So there have been some buoys which have been detected in Bay of Bengal belonging to China to study the monsoon pattern. Now if anybody had to study the monsoon pattern, it should have been either Myanmar, Bangladesh or India. But it is China who is studying, so you can join the dots. You go on open source media and you will find where you just type Weather Modification Department of China. Just type that. And you will find that there is a department known as Weather Modification Department. Imagine, आप चोरी भी कर रहे हैं और सीना चोरी भी कर रहे हैं. So Weather Modification Department of China has 37,000 employees. 37,000 employees are working on weather modification. So that is, when you start looking at that, so from India, who is monitoring that? That is the challenge, when you have to start monitoring what your adversary is doing and which of your government ministry or department is monitoring that or countering that. So that is one more issue of the comprehensive national security, that what you are doing is one part, what the enemy or the adversary is doing, you have to counter that. Now from here, I want to take you to one more interesting aspect. That interesting aspect is related to, you all would have heard of the term kinetic warfare and non-kinetic warfare. Now this is extremely important for the youth, please remember this. Kinetic warfare is what we did in 1962, 1965, 1971, 1999 Kargil, in which, except for 62, we won everything. So kinetic means आपकी आर्टिलरी इस्तेमाल हो रही है, आपकी इन्फेंट्री इस्तेमाल हो रही है, आपकी आर्मर कोर हो रही है, इंजीनियर्स लड़ रहे हैं. ये सब जो लड़ाई होती है, जो फिजिकल लड़ाई होती है, इसको काइनेटिक वॉरफेयर कहते हैं. इसमें एयरक्राफ्ट आते हैं, इसमें नेवी का भी यूसेज होता है. लेकिन अब नॉन काइनेटिक वॉरफेयर, अगेन आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू, इट इज नॉट समथिंग न्यू. दीज आर ओनली मेथड्स ऑफ फाइटिंग न्यू वॉरफेयर. जैसे जैसे हर एक देश ज्यादा डिजिटाइज्ड होगा, उसकी वल्नरेबिलिटी साइबर में बढ़ेगी. So you have to ensure that your cyber defense is ensured to a great extent. A large number of you youngsters will be wanting to join the armed forces. Some will get selected, some will not get selected. You don't have to get upset over that. In the new form of warfare, everything is not going to be fought by uniformed people. There are cyber wars which are happening even now as I talk to you. Cyber wars silently happen, because cyber war में there is no identified enemy, there is no face of the enemy, and you cannot catch the enemy and blame him because there is deniability and non-attributability. आप किसी को पकड़ के खड़ा नहीं कर सकते कि आपने ये किया, क्योंकि वो आपके ऊपर साइबर अटैक चीन से नहीं आया होगा. वो आपके ऊपर साइबर अटैक किसी ऐसे देश से आया होगा, अफ्रीका के, जिनको यही मालूम नहीं कि साइबर है क्या, लेकिन वहां से वो रूट होके इंटरनेट के थ्रू हमारे ऊपर आ सकता है. और ये जरूरी नहीं है कि हर एक साइबर अटैक आपके ऊपर चीन या पाकिस्तान से ही आएगा. कोई और भी देश होंगे जो आपके साइबर अटैक करके आपके सीक्रेट्स निकालना चाहते हैं, बिकॉज दे हैव वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट टू इंश्योर दैट यू कंटिन्यू टू रिमेन सबसर्विएंट एंड दे कैन देन कंटिन्यू टू लिवरेज. So cyber warfare is one more important challenge which we have to look at. Connected to cyber warfare is information warfare. Every day you would have seen कहीं से कोई एक WhatsApp पे मैसेज आता है और हम लोग भी सब उसमें गिल्टी हैं. मैसेज क्या है, उसका अर्थ क्या है, वो आप लोगों ने वो कौन बनेगा करोड़पति देखा होगा, फास्टेस्ट फिंगर, एवरीवन वांट्स टू बी फास्टेस्ट फिंगर, मैंने भेज दिया ग्रुप में। उसका क्या नुकसान होने वाला है इसका हमने कभी सोच विचार नहीं किया। तो साइबर एक तो ऑफेंसिव होता है और एक साइबर डिफेंस होता है। तो डिफेंस के लिए हमको सबको अपने आप काम करना है, क्योंकि सरकार हर एक हमारे कंप्यूटर के साथ एक सिपाही नहीं बैठा सकते, हमें अपने आप साइबर वॉरियर बनना है। जैसे फुटबॉल के मैच में 4 या 5 होते हैं जो जाके गोल मारते हैं, बाकी तो सब डिफेंड करते हैं ना। तो हम वो डिफेंस वाली लाइन है जिसमें ये देखना है कि हमारे देश का डेटा लीक नहीं होना चाहिए, हमारे देश के फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम्स, पावर सेक्टर, जो ट्रेन का सिस्टम है, रिजर्वेशन सिस्टम है, वो कोलैप्स नहीं होना चाहिए। और वो कोलैप्स तभी होता है जब कोई आपको एक मैसेज भेज देता है कि अगर आप इसके ऊपर क्लिक करेंगे तो आपकी लॉटरी 20,000 की लग जाएगी। वो जैसे ही आपने क्लिक किया वो आप कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो गए। जो आप मैसेजेस लिंक भेजते हैं किसी को कि ये सर्वे है, आप एक वर्ण भेज रहे हैं दूसरे को और उससे आपका पूरा वहां का नेटवर्क कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो सकता है। तो साइबर वॉरफेयर के लिए नई जनरेशन में से हम लोगों को ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोग चाहिए, चाहे वे फौज में आए या ना आए, लेकिन साइबर वॉरियर इस देश की रिक्वायरमेंट है। आज की तारीख में जितने साइबर वॉरियर्स चाइनीज आर्मी में हैं उससे ज्यादा सिविलियन हैं जो साइबर वॉरियर्स बने हुए हैं। तो ये नए तरीके की लड़ाई है जो साइबर वॉरफेयर, और हमें साइबर सिक्योरिटी रखना है। जो मेडिकल सिस्टम्स थे जो जनरल कानेटकर बता रहे थे, मेडिकल डेटा, आपने एम्स के बारे में अभी सुन लिया, एम्स में कुछ हुआ, आप लोगों ने देखा सुना। एम्स का पूरा जो सिस्टम था वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो गया। क्यों हुआ? उसके ऊपर साइबर अटैक हुआ। किसी एक की गलती से कुछ ना कुछ हुआ है। इसका मतलब यह है कि अगर मैं एक मैकेनिक हूं जिसको फाइटर एयरक्राफ्ट में सब नट्स बोल्ट चेक करना है और मैं गलती से एक नट ढीला छोड़ देता हूं तो वो पायलट मरेगा। उसी तरह से साइबर में यही है। अगर एक मशीन कमजोर होगी, जिसको बोलते हैं, हम जब लड़ाई लड़ते हैं जल पिठावाला में, हम लोग उसमें हमेशा देखते हैं हमारे शत्रु की जो डिफेंसिव चेन है उसमें से सबसे कमजोर कड़ी कौन सी, और उसको अटैक करना है। वही दुश्मन हमारे साथ भी करता है। दुश्मन उसी तरह से हमारे साइबर में वीकेस्ट चेन को ढूंढता है और उसी के थ्रू एंटर होता है। आप लोगों को शायद ये बताने की जरूरत नहीं होगी, क्योंकि आप लोगों ने शिवाजी की हिस्ट्री पढ़ी होगी। शिवाजी की हिस्ट्री में ये सब दिया गया है, किस तरह से उन्होंने मुगलों को नचाया, किस तरह से उन्होंने पोर्चुगीज को ठोका, सूरत की लूट 2 बार की उन्होंने, किस तरह से उन्होंने आदिल शाही, कुतुब शाही, सबको, निजाम शाही, सबको ठिकाने लगा के रखा। क्योंकि सबसे कमजोर कड़ी ढूंढ के उसको अटैक करना, वही चीज आज भी हो रही है, चाहे वो साइबर में हो चाहे एक्चुअल लड़ाई में हो। इंफॉर्मेशन वॉरफेयर में जिस तरह से नैरेटिव चलाया जाता है, अभी किसी को कुछ मालूम नहीं है, लेकिन एकदम से एक मैसेज आ जाता है कि जो वहां पे अरुणाचल में हुआ तवांग के पास, उसमें भारत के 35 सोल्जर इंजर्ड। किसने बताया आपको? आप थे क्या वहां? आपका कोई वहां से लिंक है? आप ऑफिशियल हैं उसके? नहीं, मेरे सोर्स ने बताया। पता नहीं कौन सा सोर्स है, और उस सोर्स से आपको कितना पैसा मिला है ये भी जांच करने की आवश्यकता है। तो ये एक इंफॉर्मेशन वॉरफेयर में एक और चीज है जिसमें आपको फास्टेस्ट फिंगर बनने की आवश्यकता नहीं है। हमारे यहाँ, हमारे समाज में we have a very good system where if I do not know something, I can ask my mother, I can ask my father, I can ask my elder brother, I can ask my elder sister. If I am in school, I can ask my teacher. If they do not know, they will go to their senior and ask. But because you are ignorant and you just pass off that deadly thing somewhere, the whole system then crumbles. So that is again information warfare, which is very often used. Even in 1962, Chinese had used against us when they used to put loudspeakers along the front, and they used to announce in Hindi or in the language which our troops used to understand, and they used to announce and say that you please surrender because your officers are no good. So that is the kind of psychological warfare that used to happen. China has a strategy which is called the three warfare strategy. One is the legal warfare, in which they dig out some old map and then they say these islands are ours in South China Sea, or they say this Macmahon line we don't agree and Tawang is ours. That is called legal warfare. The second one is psychological warfare. In psychological warfare, what I told you is to impact the people. Say, for example, there is an action which is going on, and suddenly a person, say a lady whose husband is fighting there, and that lady gets a call from somewhere and says, your husband has died. Now what happens here? There's total chaos. And if 100 such calls come, you can understand the kind of chaos that will happen in society and the kind of pressure that will get generated on the government. And the next one is public opinion. That is the third of the three warfare strategy. Public opinion is generally pushed in a manner that a strong government is made to fall. Nobody in the neighborhood wants a neighbor to be strong. A neighbor can be strong economically, militarily, and leadership-wise. So if you have strong leadership, then that leadership has to be made to collapse. And there are enough examples of that which we have seen, and that is not something which only America does. China does it, America does it, Russia does it, that if the neighbor has a strong leader, you must make him collapse. And in case of America, for them the entire world is a neighbor. They can go anywhere and make people collapse. Whether it is in Libya, whether it is in Iraq, wherever, they can make a narrative, generate public opinion in a manner, and make the government collapse. That is called regime change. There is one more domain which has come up, and that is space, outer space. The next warfare or the present war is all being controlled from space. Whoever has more satellites, satellites with more capability, they are able to see everything live as is happening, whether it is during day or night. There are different kinds of cameras. For day it is electro-optical camera, for night it is the infrared cameras, and then there are thermal imaging cameras also. So whoever does out of that, whoever has more satellites, as has happened in the Russia-Ukraine war, in the initial part, Russia was able to neutralize the satellites which Ukraine was using, and immediately an American company which went there, and they were able to launch satellites at a massive scale, massive speed. Every week they were launching about 100 satellites, 500 satellites, and suddenly you found Russia was not able to cope up with that kind of a capability. Similar things will happen against us also. So this is yet another field where the youngsters must understand that space is something, digital world is something, cyber is something where you all have tremendous capabilities of being absorbed, because we have gone on to a mission of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat is, I will make everything in India that I can. जो मैं नहीं बना सकता हूं वो मैं फॉरेन से स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के जरिए या जॉइंट वेंचर के जरिए यहाँ लाऊंगा, यहाँ पे असेंबल करूंगा, यहाँ पे मेरी फैक्ट्री होगी, चाहे वो स्टार्टअप की है, चाहे वो एमएसएमई की है, चाहे वो बड़ी फैक्ट्री है, 51% उसका ओनरशिप भारतीय का होगा, ताकि जब लड़ाई लड़े तो उस समय कोई ये ना बोले कि आपको हम गेहूं नहीं देते हैं, इस बार हम आपको फलानी चीज नहीं देंगे। उसमें कुछ क्रिटिकलिटीज हैं, अभी जैसे सेंसर्स हैं वो हम अभी यहाँ पे नहीं बना पा रहे हैं, तो वो सेंसर्स का एक फील्ड है जिसमें फ्यूचर जनरेशन कैन डू अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क। चिप्स हैं, सेमीकंडक्टर चिप्स, उसमें एक फील्ड है जो चैलेंज है। अभी आज ताइवान सबसे बड़ा एक प्रोड्यूसर है और सबको एक डर है, घबराहट है कि अगर चाइना ने ताइवान के ऊपर कुछ किया तो वो सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री का क्या होगा। ये डर चाइना को भी है, इसलिए शायद वो इतनी जल्दी नहीं कर रहा है। तो ये सेमीकंडक्टर, सेंसर, क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग, ये कुछ ऐसी टेक्नोलॉजीज हैं जिसमें अगर हम अपने युवा शक्ति को नहीं डालेंगे तो हमें इस उम्मीद के साथ लड़ना पड़ेगा कि वो काइनेटिक वॉर, काइनेटिक वॉर में भी प्रिसिजन स्ट्राइक्स होते हैं, जो मिसाइल्स होते हैं, जो बॉम्ब्स होते हैं, उनके ऊपर जो फ्यूज होता है उसके ऊपर एक चिप लगी होती है जिसमें एग्जैक्ट जिस जगह पे गोला जाना है वहां पे जाता है। तो ये एक अभी नया चैलेंज है जो हमें कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव नेशनल सिक्योरिटी में, अपनी टेक्नोलॉजी सिक्योरिटी में इसकी भरपाई करनी है। अभी इसमें सरकार ने कोशिश की है, लेकिन सिर्फ सरकार से नहीं होगा, इसमें प्राइवेट सेक्टर को भी आगे आना होगा। तो प्राइवेट सेक्टर के लिए काफी कुछ निर्देश, कुछ ऐसे रियायतें दी गई हैं। देयर हैव बीन अ लॉट ऑफ कंसेशंस व्हिच हैव बीन एक्सटेंडेड, and because the government's intent is very correct about Atmanirbhar, so the private sector is also moving very fast. In the last about 6 months, the Prime Minister has announced 75 challenges for indigenization in maritime sector, and 75 challenges in AI, and 75 challenges in space sector. The armed forces are also very keen to look at most of the things being made in India. So from August 2019 till date, we have identified a number of items, components that can be manufactured in India with a little support from the government and the market. We started in August 19 with 101 items. Today we are at about 411 items, which we have decided we will take only from Indian manufacturers. So large number of people, when they say that I did not get a government job even after I became an engineer, so the advice is you please start your startup, look at what is required, become an entrepreneur and be your own master. You don't have to be an employee with somebody. And there are a lot of brilliant youngsters who are working with IITs. There are a lot of youngsters who are working on their own. The number of startups which have crossed a particular limit of earning is more than 100. So there is a lot of activity which is happening in Atmanirbhar, and Atmanirbhar can only happen when the government is clear about it, when the quality of human resource is very good, and when the armed forces, which are the biggest users, they commit themselves to taking indigenous products. Atmanirbhar is not only in defense sector, Atmanirbhar in other areas also. Atmanirbhar in other areas, especially in the health sector, in infrastructure. Now, after about, I think, from Thursday onwards, there will be a series which will be shown on Discovery Channel, in which there are 12 episodes in which the best possible infrastructures which have been created by Indian engineers will be shown. So I urge you to see that and see what kind of bridges we have built, what kind of roads we have built. You keep seeing them in bits and pieces, but those 12 episodes will actually show you consolidated, and I'm sure those 12 are not going to stop. I'm sure they will continue in a manner because there are more requirements of infrastructure to be created. So Atmanirbhar is in everything. Atmanirbhar is also required in the education field. By 2024, the number of students from India who will go abroad to study, they will be spending $84 billion of the money that we will be paying to those countries. Those countries are very keen that our students should go there. In fact, they are extending loans to our Indian students so that thereafter they stay there and work for their industry. So that is the kind of thing, because in quite a few of these countries, the maximum students in the last about 20 years were from China, who have now been thrown back. Because these students and research faculty used to go and steal the research project and go and manufacture it in China. So that void, because of which a number of universities felt the pressure, they have started attracting the Indian students. It is good if there is something which is known as the cutting edge technology which we do not have, our students should go there. But we have very good academic institutions, and it is for the faculty to energize these faculties and take it to a level that we are able to tell our students that you have an equally good faculty here. You want to go for a small capsule, it's okay, but don't stay back there. But that's not something which is important by not sending. there are some very good youngsters who, having learned there, are now coming back. I know a number of them who have earned money there and now they have come and started industries in India. So he is living there. He may be an American citizen, but he is an OCI card holder and he is manufacturing in India as a part of the Atmanirbhar initiative. So this is something which is very important for you all to know. Last point before I conclude my talk is about the chemical and biological warfare. Biological warfare, you've seen COVID, you can understand what I am saying. Because we have a large number of industries which have various types of gases, we are vulnerable to the chemical threats also. So even that part, we have to be very sensitive, and there has been action which has been taken by the government. Because normally, if there is some smell which is noticed by someone, the normal response is you ring up the police. You ring up the police station, 100 or whatever is the number. And you find that the policeman doesn't know what to do. And he invariably dies. So there has been now activity in the state police departments where the sensitization of the policemen is being done. How will they react? What will happen if there is some kind of a repeat of what happened in Bhopal with the Union Carbide kind of a thing? So even that part is being looked at, because ultimately every citizen expects from the government his well-being, whether it is economical or his safety, for which we have to develop, we have to grow. So economics is important, and security in which, other than military, all these various domains which I have explained to you are extremely important. I hope I have been able to convince you what is comprehensive national security. Thank you so much. I am here available for any question or answer.
Thank you so much, sir, for covering all the topics in a variety of manner. You started from Jai basic concepts like national power, national interest, and coming to the 5 dimensions of security and threat perception. Thank you so much, sir, for this such a wonderful explanation of comprehensive security. Sir, please be seated. The dais is open for question and answer session. If anybody is having question, please raise your hand. The mic will be available for you.
Jai sir, my name I Rambhoomi Sachin Kumar Sharma from class 12. My question is, Kashmir problem has been one of the major problems in India. How can solve this problem by national security?
Please explain again.
Sir, Kashmir problem has been one of the major problems in India. How can we solve this problem by national security?
Okay. Kashmir problem to a large extent has been subdued after Article 370 has been removed. There has been a lot of action there, and all of us who've been there earlier and those who are going now, there are a number of changes which have happened. Now, take for example the number of tourists who have gone to Jammu Kashmir. That figure, when it goes skyrocketing, you can make out that people are confident that Kashmir is peaceful. That is one part. Secondly, the developmental projects in Kashmir are increasing. Earlier there was a lot of corruption there. Now, with the grassroots level people being involved in the development project, there is a lot of change because people are seeing the advantages of Article 370. Now, there will continue to be problems there because these problems are coming from across from Pakistan. And like I told you in the initial part, the problem perpetrator is in Pakistan, but there is a supporter here. And the supporter here can be marginalized only when the citizens help the government. Now, wherever there is a support from the people, in those areas, there is peace and tranquility. The dynamics of Kashmir are different in different areas. Like Jammu has a different problem, Rajouri has a different problem, Poonch has a different problem, Uri has a different problem, Kupwara has a different problem, Baramulla has a different problem because the population composition there is different. There are some people who support the terrorists from across, but there are some who immediately hand over these terrorists to the military. Even in 1965, there had been a lot of infiltration and the Pakistanis at that time had felt that Kashmir will stand up as a rebellion, but it was the Kashmiri people who handed over these people to the Indian armed forces. Unless we tackle Pakistan, Kashmir problem will not be solved. So what has happened? We have given Pakistan enough opportunities by engaging them in different kinds of talks. Even Prime Minister Modi went to Pakistan to visit Nawaz Sharif for a family function of his, but within 7 days they attacked Pathankot air base. So what is very clear there is what the politician wants, the Pakistan army does not want. What the Pakistan army wants, they get it executed from the terrorists. Gradually, the Pakistan army and ISI has developed the capabilities of the terrorists that they can carry out operations like 2611, which require special forces capability. Those people started from Pakistan. They were Punjabis who have never gone out at sea. At 3 places they changed boats. Anybody who is having a relative in Navy, please ask them how difficult it is to move from one boat to another in open sea. And that is where it came out that the ISI and Pakistan Army have trained the terrorists to become special forces variety. The ones they moved and used in 2611 in Mumbai, similar terrorists have been used by them in Afghanistan. And that is something which has got revealed because of our intelligence work and the kind of financial help that Pakistan as a government has been giving to these terrorists who come into Kashmir. If you've heard of the term FATF, Financial Action Task Force, till now, for nearly 3 years, Pakistan was put on sanctions of FATF grey list. Now, for the first time, they have got out of it, more because of the help that they've got from China and USA. But they have learned that lesson that if they interfere in Kashmir and it gets proved, they will again land up in the same situation. When Indian government says that we will not talk to Pakistan unless they get rid of this terrorism habit, so that is the only solution. We have to act tough. And now that Pakistan is already having some problems with their politicians and military, there can be more adventurous attempts just to divert the attention. So this is the time where we have to be extra careful.
Jai sir, my name is Ashok.
Yes, please continue your question.
Jai sir, my name is Harshvardhan Patel from class 11. So my question is, how will our Indian Army will overcome China? When will be their war-like situation?
Okay. Again, I want to take you back to Chanakya days. And Chanakya, prior to Chanakya also, we've had a lot of thinkers. And a lot of our thinkers have said, till you become equally powerful, avoid a conflict. You don't have to be a person living in a colony or a mohalla next to a Pahalwan and you weigh 40 kilos and you go and start fighting. So what is extremely important for us is this period in which we have to become strong. We have to become strong economically. When you become strong economically, you will become strong militarily. When the Prime Minister says that in the next 2 or 3 years we want to become a 5 trillion economy, and he had said this before COVID. And before COVID, the armed forces had a defense budget of 1.9% per capita of the GDP. And then our economy was $2.5 trillion. The day you become 5 trillion economy, the defense budget automatically will become double of that. So first requirement is to improve your economics, and the second is to look at everything in a matured manner where you don't get pushed into war because somebody else. There are enough countries in the world who will want a war between India and China because then they will want to sell weapons to us. So we have to be strategic in our thought process, strategic in our behavior, and strategic in our decision making. China problem can only be overcome when we become strong and there is deterrence where China does not attempt anything. There is another thing. When you look at China and you look at other European countries or America, there is a different way of tackling both. Any Oriental country, any Asian country has a different set of values and different set of behavioral patterns. If China gets humiliated at some place, it comes back with a lot of vengeance. That doesn't happen with Anglo-Saxon countries. So when we are looking at China and how to deal with them, believe me, when we deal with China, we deal with them as per our national interest. There are a lot of countries which advise us, why don't you do this? We said, okay, we heard you, but finally we are doing what we want. So that is called strategic autonomy. The foreign minister has been saying openly that India will take decisions which are in its own national interest. And dealing with China is on the same principle. So as far as possible, till we become strong, we will not do anything to instigate or antagonize China. But at the same time, the line is very clear. Not an inch is to be given. And that is what I was saying, that cyber is something for all of us to defend. And we should be able to say, not an inch to be given, not a bit or a bite also to be given.
This is the last question we are taking. Sir, my second question is, in 1991, India was faces economic crisis. So my question is, what changes took place in Indian security policy after 1991? Sir, what changes took place in India security policy in 1991?
Okay. I will just repeat the question as I have understood. After 1991, what security policy changes have taken place? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What happened in 1991? Can you tell me?
Economic crisis was going on in India, sir.
No. 1991, the whole world changed. Cold War stopped. USSR just collapsed. And when USSR collapsed, the entire world was in a state of shock. There were a number of countries which became independent. There were a number of countries which rushed in to look at their own economic interests there. So the whole world was going through a turmoil period there. And as far as India is concerned, we did not have major challenges. But when we started liberalizing our economy, we started becoming strong. We opened the doors. You all are not of the era that you've seen something known as license Raj. Maybe the first 2 rows, they would remember that for anything and everything you had to stand in a queue and some babu would either clear that file or send it in a orbit where it will not be traced. But it was the government at that time which took a decision and said we will liberalize the entire economy because we were in a financial mess, and we immediately bounced back. And because we bounced back thereafter, we have not had a similar situation as that we had seen at that point in time. You also remember that around 1991, what else was happening? As far as India was concerned, our CHME battle was continuing. Our Punjab issue was still in some turbulence. We had the Sri Lanka issue going on. So we had our hands full. And that is the time when we started looking at, and if you remember, after that attack on Parliament, we had gone in for something known as Parakram for nearly about a year plus. We were along the border. So those were difficult days. I think for us to have learned from those lessons and come to a level where you don't see so many terrorist strikes now. The last terrorist strike that you've seen, you may not even be able to tell me. Otherwise, earlier, sometimes there was an attack on Akshardham, there was an attack, even in Bangalore there was an attack in Calcutta. Jammu, I am not even counting. So all those attacks of terrorists were happening in a manner with a lot of impunity. And that continued from the 89 period right till the time we had 26/11, and we had, even after that, what we had in Pathankot, what we had in Nagrota, what we had in Uri. These are those times of distress. And when we started tightening up these issues, that is the time Jammu Kashmir came up with agitational dynamics. General Cyrus and me, we were both there at that particular time. Entire thousands and thousands of men, women used to come on the streets and throw stones. You imagine a stone which is not called a weapon, but if it comes at you at 50 kilometers per hour speed, I am sure you are going to die. And those were the days which we have gone through, and now I think we have come to a stage where we are a little stable because those agitational dynamics have reduced, the kind of terrorist attacks have reduced, the stability is coming up, economic growth is catching up. Any nation which goes at a steady rate of anything between 5% to 10% for 10 to 20 years will become a strong country. China is an example of it.
Jai Hind, sir. First of all, thank you for keeping me alive. I have immense gratitude towards the Indian Army and person. Yeah. My question is, we know that the Kashmiri terrorism and the Red Corridor terrorism has subsided as compared to the past. But a new issue, or rather an old issue, is again catching steam, that is of the Khalistani terrorism. When the Honorable Prime Minister revoked the revolutionary farm laws, many people like me were saddened, but he left an indication to all of us that he is doing this in the national interest. Lately, from what has happened globally, we are seeing many terrorists or Khalistani linked individuals have been killed in various circumstances, either in accidents or other cases in different countries. Is there a link that the Indian intelligence agencies are involved somewhere in trying to preempt this Khalistani threat? Can you shed light on this, or maybe whatever you can share with us?
Even if we were doing, would I tell you? Even if we were doing it, would I say it openly? If it makes you happy, stay happy.
Please be quiet. Here we will take the last portion of question and answer session. So please come forward. So please come forward to ask your question. Rambhoomi, please be quiet.
Jai sir. So why can't we have different laws or judiciary system for our armed forces? As you have already know, the PIL was registered against the interest of your nation when the road development was there. So why can't we have the separate judiciary system for the armed forces?
See, in a democracy, we cannot demand this. The requirement of having executive, legislature, judiciary, media, You know, these are all important pillars of the constitution. And we have adopted a constitution, and it is not that we are not making amendments. Like there are certain topics which require a lot of deliberation, and what you correctly brought